And you know how I talk about from time to time that there's these meetings between like BRICS nations, China, Russia, whatever, and it's like, where's the U.S. representative? And like nobody's showing up or even invited from the U.S. to these meetings, which are essentially global trade deals. You know, agreeing to work with each other, things like that. Which we just added what the hell was it, 522% tax increase on imported rolled steel from China. So here we are as the U.S. telling all these other countries just recently, do not devalue, don't devalue your dollar, like we're warning you, don't devalue. And then we go and raise the tariff or whatever on these imported steel rolls from China, which essentially makes us not even worth Chinese, worth their while to send over. It's too much money. They'll just have to completely cut us out. So that's one thing. But what I want to talk about is back to the old piece of we're not invited to these meetings, and they're kind of putting themselves in a position over there in China to take the role that we used to have, or we kind of barely just still have. This is a site I've never actually read, but it was a very good article. m.journal-neo.org. Okay. China quietly prepares golden alternative to dollar system by William Engdahl. China, as a current chair of the G20 group of nations, called on France to organize a very special conference in Paris. The fact such a conference would even take place in a OECD country is a sign of how weakened the hegemony of the U.S.-denominated dollar system has become. On March 31st in Paris, a special meeting named Nanjing II was held. People's Bank of China governor was there and made a major presentation on, among the other points, broader use of the IMF special basket of 5 major world currencies, which is the special drawing rights, or SDRs. The invited were a very select few. The list included the German finance minister, UK chancellor, IMF managing director, which is, of course, Christine Lagarde. They discussed the world's financial architecture together with China. Apparently and significantly, there was no senior U.S. official present. Again. On the Paris talks, Bloomberg reported, China wants a much more closely managed system where private sector decisions can be managed by governments, said Edwin Truman, a former Federal Reserve and U.S. Treasury official. The French have always favored international monetary reform, so they're natural allies to the Chinese on this issue. A China Youth Daily journalist present in Paris noted that their representative pointed out that the international monetary and financial system is currently undergoing structural adjustment. The world economy is facing many challenges. According to the journalist, he went on to declare that China's aim as current president of the G20 talks is to promote the wider use of the SDR, now that their currency is heavily weighed in on that basket of currencies, of course. But where's gold going to play a role in this? And as I get through this, I think we're going to find out. For most of us, that sounds about as exciting as watching Johnson grass grow in the Texas plains. However, behind that seemingly minor technical move, as is becoming clear by the day, is a grand Chinese strategy. If it succeeds or not, a grand strategy to displace the dominating role of the U.S. dollar as world central bank reserve currency. China and others want an end to the tyranny of a broken dollar system that finances endless wars on other people's borrowed money with no need to ever pay it back. The strategy is to end the domination of the dollar as the currency for most world trade in goods and services. He says, and that's no small beer. Despite the wreck of the U.S. economy and the astronomical $19 trillion public debt of Washington, the dollar still makes up 64% of all central bank reserves. The largest holder of U.S. debt is still the People's Republic of China, with Japan a close second. As long as the dollar is king currency, Washington can run endless budget deficits, knowing well that countries like China have no serious alternative to invest its foreign currency trade profits but in U.S. government or government-guaranteed debt. In effect, as I've pointed out, that has meant that China has de facto financed the military actions of Washington that act to go against Chinese or Russian sovereign interest to finance countless U.S. State Department color revolutions from Tibet to Hong Kong, Libya, Ukraine, to finance ISIS in the Middle East, and on and on and on. And, as I'm reading this, as I just told you, they just added a 522% tariff, import duty fee, whatever it is, on Chinese rolled steel. So China's, well, we got the hugest amount of foreign reserves of U.S. dollars. They're telling us constantly, those pesky U.S. Bozos keep telling us not to devalue. We do whatever the hell we want to do. Now they've increased this, our tariff, so we can't export to them. Okay. Call the president. Listen, I think it's time to go with Plan B. Plan G. Tell the president it's time for Plan G. What is Plan G? Plan G is Plan Gold. Oh, you guys like to set the price of gold every day on your little paper exchange. We know you don't have the gold to back it. I'm going to put a huge paper contract order on the COMEX and immediately demand delivery. I'm going to pay these contracts out in full. I want the gold. You want to up your little 522% increase in rolled steel? We got you covered. Let's spend about $3, $4, $5 billion. And while we're at it, not just gold, some silver too. Matter of fact, let's put a couple billion on silver. It would crush the COMEX immediately. There'd be no paper contracts. They won't be able to print enough of these things to do anything about it. Because China's going to be saying, give me my money. And we're going to be saying, and cue the terror attack in Chicago at the CME Group immediately. We cannot stand for delivery on that silver and gold. We need a terrorist attack immediately so we can halt this whole damn thing. That's a big 10-4. Calling the boys. Now, where was I? Multi-world currency. If we look more closely at all the steps of the Beijing government since the global financial crisis of 2008, and especially since their creation of the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, the BRICS New Development Bank, the bilateral national currency energy agreements with Russia bypassing the dollar, it becomes clear that the Beijing leadership have a long-term strategy. As British economist David Marsh pointed out in reference to the recent Paris Nanjing II remarks, China is embarking, pragmatically but steadily, towards enshrining a multi-currency reserve system at the heart of the world's financial order. British economist David Marsh, did you just use the word order? My radar's going off about New World Order. What are you trying to say, David? Since China's admission into the IMF select group of SDR currencies last November, the multi-currency system, which China calls 4+1, would consist of the euro, sterling, yen, renminbi, which is the 4, coexisting with the dollar. And of course, the renminbi is also the Chinese yuan dollar. These are the 5 constituents of the SDR. To strengthen the recognition of the SDR, People's Bank of China has begun to publish its foreign reserves total, the world's biggest in SDRs as well as dollars. So China is already scooping up a bunch of SDRs, are they? A golden future. Yet the Chinese alternative to the domination of the US dollar is about far more than paper SDR currency basket promotion. China is clearly aiming at the re-establishment of an international gold standard, presumably one not based on the bankrupt Bretton Woods gold-dollar exchange or dollar for gold exchange that President Richard Nixon unilaterally ended in August 1971 when he told the world they would have to swallow paper dollars in the future and could no longer redeem them for gold. At that point, global inflation, measured in dollar terms, began to soar in what future economic historians would no doubt dub the greatest inflation. By one estimate, the dollars in worldwide circulation rose by some 2,500% between 1970 and 2000. Since then, the rise has been clearly brought to well over 3,000%. Without a legal requirement to back its dollar printing by a predetermined fixed amount of gold, all restraints were off in a global dollar inflation. So long as the world is forced to get dollars to settle accounts for oil, grain, or other commodities, Washington can write endless checks with little fear of them bouncing, so to speak. Combined with the fact that over that same time span, since 1971, there has been a silent coup of the Wall Street banks to hijack any and all semblance of representative democracy and constitution-based rules. We have the mad money machine, much like the German poet Goethe's 18th century fable, Sorcerer's Apprentice. Dollar creation is out of control. Since 2015, China is moving very clearly to replace London and New York and the Western gold futures price setting exchanges, keeping in mind, as I just did a video the other day, they just purchased a whopper of a gold warehouse storage facility, whatever, in London, after doing just the same thing in America a couple years before. Remember that? China. So now China's got a nice big vault in America. They got a nice big gold vault in London. They've got their exchanges set up. I've been saying this for the last few years. They are setting themselves up to take over what the United States currently controls. So imagine having the amount of dollars that we have in the world. And imagine what happens when that puppy goes. It is not going to be some little walk in the park. It can't be. It cannot be. In May 2015, China announced it had set up a state-run gold investment fund. The aim was to create a pool initially of $16 billion, making it the world's largest physical gold fund to support gold mining projects along the new high-speed railway lines of President Xi's new economic Silk Road, or One Road, One Belt as it is called. As China expressed it, the aim is to enable the Eurasian countries along the Silk Road to increase the gold backing of their currencies. The countries along the Silk Road and within the BRICS nations happen to contain most of the world's people and natural and human resources utterly independent of any the West has to offer. In May 2015, China's Shanghai Gold Exchange formally established the Silk Road Gold Fund. The two main investors in the new fund were China's two largest gold mining companies, Shandong Gold Group, who bought 35% of the shares, and Shangxi Gold Group with 25%. The fund will invest in gold mining projects along the route of the Eurasian Silk Road railways, including in the vast underexplored parts of the Russian Federation. A little-known fact is that no longer is South Africa the world's gold king. It is a mere number 7 in annual gold production. China is number 1, and Russia is number 2. And, for a bonus, because I just remembered this as I'm reading this, China discovers gold offshore. I just read this the other day. China discovers 470-ton gold mine worth over $16.4 billion. Right offshore. Huge seabed gold deposit discovered off eastern China, blah, 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 same story. So you can see where China is going with this. And unfortunately, sadly, you can see where we in America are going with this. We're going to be going down the tubes. So as I say, if you're a fly on the wall, what are the big boys doing? China, number 1 gold. Russia, number 2. India, buying also tons of gold and silver. Why are they doing it all of a sudden? Why all of a sudden? Because they're gearing up for worldwide change on an epic level to the financial system. And there is always pain to be felt when something like this has to happen. You know what I'm going to say. The only thing that can protect you, precious metals. Take care.